Well, good morning, and welcome to this episode of the Wisdom of the Soul class. Uh, we're coming to you from the Colorado Desert in Southern California. People say, why is it called the Colorado Desert if it's in Southern California? Well, this is where the Colorado River ends. This is where it peters out. That's a mighty, mighty river, and most of the water for everybody west of the Rockies comes from that one river, but none of it ever reaches the ocean. This is where it peters out. It's a beautiful place. It's really hot this time of year. If you're a centigrade person, it's usually 40 to 45 degrees, sometimes as high as 50 degrees. That means at least 105 to 115. And it's not uncommon to go to 120. I've seen 122. It's a funny way to say it. I've seen 122. 122 is where you run your AC full blast, and it doesn't help. It's dangerous past 115 to even go outside. But we love it here because the nights are elegant, and 8 months out of the year it's idyllic. It's just beautiful. And quiet, oh my God. I didn't know how quiet it could be. And we lived in Maui at 4,000 feet for 5 years and thought that was quiet. But it's beautiful. And I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be anywhere, frankly. And so happy that you've decided to join us today. We open with a meditation and then some instruction. And at the top of the hour, about 52 minutes from now, or shortly thereafter, we'll go to some Q&A. So any comments or questions that you have now, it's not too soon to put them in the chat box, or as the class progresses, just compose your ideas in the chat box, and that helps you to condense them into something concise and deliberate, pointed. And then when we go to the Q&A, Melinda will read the question and give you the opportunity to address it and expand on it a little bit further. We found this a pretty good format, pretty good way to handle the questions. I'd also ask you to make sure you're muted. It's easy to forget, be unaware. And then background sound becomes a problem. So make sure you're muted. And last week we did a long, deep meditation. We talked about brain waves and the levels below the so-called beta range, which is wide awake, consciously awake and alert, high stimulus, moving around in the world. The alpha is mild relaxation. The theta level is the deep trance-like level just above sleep, where you lose conscious awareness. And so we did a meditation last week where we did a deepening. If you are particularly stressed and you feel that you have not been able to get into level, so to speak, your meditation doesn't feel any different than your waking state. Your mind is still racing, your breathing is shallow, you're uncomfortable. Use that technique we presented last week of slowly walking downstairs and counting yourself down backwards from 10 to 1, or if you prefer 25 to 1, going deeper and more relaxed. Feel the letting go. The mind is real amenable to correlating relaxation with moving down. And So I want to do another version of that this week. Not a deepening, but another exercise that could be thought of as a kind of induction. And as I mentioned last week, most schools of meditation and most meditation teachers do not talk about induction. They'll just say, close your eyes and relax. Or maybe your meditation is preceded by some hatha yoga, some stretching, the asanas. And that's a preparation for meditation, preparation for yoga, which means union, a state of open receptivity to the impress of the higher self, the wisdom of the soul. So today I want to show you a wonderful, very effective form of meditation that or induction, like the beginning part of the meditation, that I often use with beginners because it is so effective, and will use invariably with someone who I perceive to be particularly tense, and their mind is racing, and they're fidgety, and their attention span is degraded. These are all signs that you're carrying a lot of stress and anxiety, and that amygdala has been triggered, and it's trying to find danger everywhere. That's really what it's doing when you experience so-called attention deficit. You just can't concentrate, or your mind races ahead. You're trying to read a book or trying to listen to someone, and your mind just roars right past what they're saying, as if there's some benefit in looking farther down the road, anticipate what they may be saying. And why do we do that? Why is that so frustrating and difficult to concentrate, difficult to pay attention? And it's because anything unknown, anything new and therefore unknown, or anything old and never understood, like childhood trauma and the false assumptions we make about ourselves as little kids. Then we forget we made the false assumption, but it's still in there like a mental loop, questioning whether you're any good, if you're adequate, if you're smart enough, pretty enough, strong enough, lovable enough, yada, yada, yada. And every one of us knows that feeling. So let's do this. It's called progressive muscular relaxation, or PMR, sometimes called fractional relaxation. And if you ever have a problem meditating or getting to a nice relaxed level, this is a wonderful way to begin any meditation. And then use the technique from last week, going down the stairs. If you've been meditating for 3 or 5 minutes and just don't feel like anything's shifting for you, then do the visualization and the visceral feeling of moving down and saying to yourself mentally, internally, silently, going deeper, more relaxed as you move down the stairs, counting 8, deeper, more relaxed, 7. If you missed class last week, it's on YouTube, and you can check that out. Just search Ageless Wisdom Mystery School when you get to the YouTube page. All right, so close your eyes and relax. Get comfortable in your chairs or on your meditation pillow. If you're sitting cross-legged, most of us are in chairs. We're Westerners, and that's just fine. Close your eyes. Take 2 or 3 nice, slow, deep breaths in your own time, your own pace, your own rate. And as you exhale through the nose or the mouth, create and sense a letting go feeling. And as you inhale through the nose, ideally, feel yourself pulling in strength and power. And after a short pause as you peak, Exhale through the nose or the mouth and feel the letting go. One more time. Nice, big, slow, deep breath. And the sigh of relief is a sigh of release. Turn your breathing over to autopilot. Just let it go. And you need not give it another thought. Move your awareness to your feet. And without overdoing this, I don't want you to hurt yourself. So don't be extreme about this, but gradually tighten just your feet. Tighten the muscles in your feet. And then all at once let go. And remind yourself, oh, that's how it feels to let go. And then move your awareness to your calf muscles. And again, don't overdo this, but just tighter and tighter in the calves. And after about 3 seconds, let go. And remind yourself how it feels to let go. Then move above the knee into the upper legs. And again, tighten, tighter and tighter, and all at once, let go. And you could do this all the way up through the torso and then down into the arms, but I think you got the idea. So go back to the feet. And even though we just let go of muscular tension, with your awareness on just your feet, see if you can't feel just a little more letting go. Even if it feels like you're just making it up. Imagine letting go just a little more in the feet. And then in the calves, even though you already relaxed them just a minute ago, see if you can't go just a little further. Creating and sensing, subtle though it may be, a letting go in the calves. And then in the upper legs. On the top of the upper leg, on the back. I should know the names of those muscles. Hamstrings, and doesn't matter the name, but you've got muscles on the top and the back of your upper leg. Create and sense a letting go feeling there. I know they're already relaxed, but see if you can't feel just a little more release. Almost as if you're floating on your back in water. In your mind's eye, you may wish to consider that as the muscles in your leg relax, the arteries and the veins, the little thread-like capillaries, actually dilate a little bit as the muscles they course through relax. And so it's easy to imagine that the blood in your legs is moving with less resistance, more easily. Maybe your blood pressure is normalizing and coming down just a little bit. Maybe your pulse lowers a little because it doesn't have to work so hard to push the blood through these miles and miles of capillaries and the veins and the arteries. Just imagine the blood flow in your legs from the bottom of your feet moving up toward your hips, being more relaxed and more efficient in oxygenating and carrying away the carbon dioxide of oxidation. And then you just allow that feeling to move slowly up through the center of your body, relaxing the abdomen and the lower back. And even though, as I say, you're relaxed already, but feel a little more letting go, even if you're just pretending. That's the right feeling. In the middle back and the tummy, just imagine feeling a relaxation feeling, a feeling of muscles unwinding. In the upper back and within the rib cage, imagine all of those organs. Most of us have no idea where they are, but there's the heart, there's the lungs, there's the kidney and the liver and the gallbladder and the spleen and the pancreas. Imagine all of those organs relaxing, even if you just think you're pretending. That's the right feeling. So they all become more efficient as you become more and more relaxed. And you feel that spreading across your shoulders and flowing down into your arms. A gentle warmth, almost like warm water in a shower, runs down from your head and shoulders, running down your body. You feel this wonderful, gentle warmth of relaxation flowing through your lower arms and through the wrists into the back of your hands and the palms of your hands. And you feel the letting go all the way down to the tips of your fingers and your thumbs. And you can imagine even the grip of the cuticles on your fingernails relaxing. And then lift your awareness to the neck and shoulders and let go of what is often some pretty familiar tension in that area. Just imagine the area softening or yielding, because you're safe, and the more you relax, the safer you become. And if you lift your awareness to the space around your ears, you'll actually feel that space sag or droop just a little bit as you relax your scalp. Who would have thought that we carry tension in our scalp? But what a wonderful feeling to feel your ears lower just a little bit as you relax your scalp, and across the forehead, and your eyelids, of course, are relaxed and closed. And imagine that relaxation moving into your cheeks and the rest of your face, and particularly into the jaw. Oh my goodness, where the jaw is connected to the skull, the hinges on either side. Feel a letting go in that area as well. You'll probably notice, simply by relaxing without any effort at all, you'll feel a slight, ever so subtle upturn in the corners of your mouth, as if there is a smile, small, but definitely a little smile that goes with simply feeling safe and relaxed. And then slowly scan your body with your awareness. From the top of your head, sweeping elegantly and gracefully the full length of your body, all the way down to the soles of your feet, letting go of any residual tension or pressure or tightness. Do that a couple of times, sweeping from your head to your feet and then slowly back again. And if you find any areas that you missed, any area of concern, maybe even if it's a health concern, and it may not be painful, it may not feel tight, but feel some letting go in that area as well. As if you're acknowledging that the body heals itself, especially when we release muscular tension. For illness is called dis-ease, and so better health, obviously, would flow from being at ease. Feel that peace. Let the body do it for you. You don't have to micromanage anything. Your body breathes itself all by itself. The signal that beats your heart comes from within the heart. It beats itself. It has its own awareness. And the miracles of how all the organs are continually monitoring your condition. That's all handled for you. More efficiently, more effectively, more efficaciously. How about that? As you become more and more relaxed, feel the letting go. Again, imagine you're floating on your back in water and how much letting go is required to allow the water to support you and to enjoy the wonderful feelings of deep relaxation, feeling so safe, so relaxed. Now, as long as we're here, let's do some affirmations. Let's focus on one particular situation or event in your life and trust your intuition. Freely associate. When I ask you to consider a concern, an issue, a problem, even if it's just a general discomfort or uneasiness around a particular event or circumstance, some condition that has arisen in your life, and allow just one of those to come to the fore and gently identify this area of concern. It may be physical in nature. It may be a problem that you're wrestling with mentally. And I'm sure it affects the way you feel emotionally in some way. And I want you to let go of it, to recognize that you've been struggling and micromanaging and trying to figure out what to do. And instead, let go. Let go with a sense that you're becoming more and more aware of, that in time this will be handled because you're an inherently good person. Evil, malicious people do not come to meditation classes. They're not interested in understanding themselves, in discovering the truth of who they are. The very fact that you're here that you made the effort is evidence of your desire to embody virtue and ethics, to refine your values, to be a better and better and better person every day in every way. Knowing that, let go of your problems. Let go of your sadness and anxiety. Let go of any physical pain or discomfort. Having identified it and aware of it, turn it over to this autopilot, this involuntary system that for your entire life has healed you of every illness, every malady, every broken bone, every bruise and blister. Healed itself, all by itself. Acknowledge that. Just as you would if you were a gardener and planted a seed, tapped the soil down gently, sprinkled it with your watering can, and then stood up and stepped back, turning it over to whatever miracle allows that seed to sprout, to come above the surface of the soil, searching for the sun, opening itself, growing, reaching toward its source, flowering, blossoming, standing open and receptive to the full light and the loving support of the universe that wants it to grow, does the growing, and acknowledges that this is good and effortless. It's like the so-called search for love and understanding. It's not really a search. It's a matter of letting go of everything that is not love and releasing the confusion that muddies the water. And then the water will clear, the mud will settle. The surface of the pond will become smooth as glass. You just let go of the struggle and trust life. How willing are we to trust life, to trust yourself, to be aware enough to learn to trust others with awareness, not foolishness, not reckless, but safe and relaxed, aware and alert, loving, trusting, wishing for others to be as happy as you wish to be. Equalizing yourself with others so that you acknowledge the inherent desire of others to be happy. This is love, wanting others to be happy. Not instead of you, that would be codependent, but as you are happy, safe and loving. You wish that for others. And it's every bit as important and every bit as essential as your own happiness. This is wishing love. It's cherishing. It's easy to do with those in your family, to love them. But to love your neighbor, all of your neighbors, really in the same way, even those that you find so irritating, to wish that they are happy, even your enemy. Love your enemy. Simply means to have enough compassion to recognize their suffering. Love your enemy means understand their suffering. Check in to see if you're contributing to that suffering. And if you ceased contributing to the suffering of others, maybe they would not be your enemy. Wish that the entire world feel safe and happy. And concern yourself with the happiness of others. And that includes people you've never met and will never know. It includes the animals and the insects and the plants. And for that matter, the mineral kingdom too. It's all about letting go. To be more aware. To see more clearly. With an undisturbed mind and an open heart. Because we're so deeply relaxed, I'm going to count slowly from 1 to 5. I don't need to. You could open your eyes wide awake at any time, but count yourself out when you do this alone. And in this case, I'll do it for you, just a slow 1 to 5. So that in a few moments, when I finally get to 5, at that point, you'll open your eyes, wide awake and alert, rested and refreshed, feeling really great, better than before. And as I count 1, imagine yourself gently drifting upward toward the waking state. 2, as if in a hot air balloon, or like a scuba diver slowly floating up beside their bubbles, gently drifting upward toward the surface. 3, or if in the hot air balloon, rising now above the treetops and watching the horizon spread in all directions. 4, feel the chair supporting you. Feel the floor beneath your feet and remember the room around you, what we're doing, why we're here. And 5, his eyes open, wide awake, back in the room, wide awake, better than before, feeling great, feeling relaxed. And take a nice big breath, and maybe stretch a little bit, or shake it off. And wake up fully and completely feeling better than before. There you go. That's the long relax, progressive muscular relaxation, PMR, or sometimes fractional relaxation. And it's great for beginners, and it's wonderful wherever you are in the journey of personal and spiritual development to use if it's one of those days that you just can't seem to relax. Your mind is just racing and demanding you pay attention to its petitioning. Think about this, think about that, solve this problem, what are we going to do? Oh, Lord, what will we ever do? Yada, 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 yada. Well, maybe the best thing to do is take a deep breath and let go of it all. Just put it down. Just as you allow the body to breathe itself and the heart to beat itself, food to be digested and disease is fought with no effort at all. We tend to micromanage, gang. We make it way too difficult. We make our own hell on earth. Life really is what you make it. All right, that was longer than usual. I still want to go to questions in about 20 or 25 minutes. I mentioned in the newsletter this week that I wanted to talk about the Zen koan, chop wood, carry water. A koan, K-O-A-N, in Zen philosophy is a kind of a riddle or an enigma. It's a challenging concept, like contemplate one hand clapping. Well, what the hell does that mean? Well, what do you think it means? Don't be too quick to answer. Or the finger pointing at the moon is not the moon. Huh? What? What do you mean by that, Michael? Well, these are ancient koans that Zen masters have thought up or allowed to occur to them to stimulate the imagination of their students. And one of the more famous Zen koans is chop wood, carry water. And in its fullness, it appears in many different ways in the teachings. Remember, this material is 2,500 years old. It's 500 years before Christ. Chop wood, carry water in its fullness is before enlightenment. You have to chop wood and carry water. You have to busy yourself with these affairs of the world. After enlightenment, Guru, tell me, what do I do after enlightenment? And the Guru says, chop wood, carry water. This brings up Christ saying pretty much the same thing about the need to be in the world, but not of it. Or we could even stretch it to another of Christ's sayings about storing your riches in heaven and not on earth. Or render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, and render unto God that which is from your source. These are all references to the paradox of living in the middle between spirit and matter. Being spiritual beings in animal bodies, don't you see? This is a major part of the wisdom of the soul, because it's the soul, so to speak. It's really just a word. It's a way of comprehending the intersection of two things. Imagine two circles that come together until they overlap. And that area where they overlap, that intersection, is both circles. So this circle is yin and this circle is yang, so to speak. One is light, one is dark, one is spiritual, one is material. One is heaven, one is earth, however you want to look at it. But when they overlap, there's this oval shape. It's called, actually it has a name. It's called the vesica piscis. It's the fish. It's that fish shape. You see it in the CBS logo. If you ever look carefully at the logo that CBS TV has used forever and a day, you'll see these intersecting circles forming the vesica piscis. It's why Christians use the fish to represent their religion. You'll often see this fish on the bumper of their car. They don't know what that's about. They figure it must have something to do with most of Christ's apostles being fishermen, and so many of Christ's allegories have to do with fish, paying the temple tax with the coin in the fish's mouth, and multiplying the fishes and the loaves, and walking on water, and fish seem to have a lot to do with it, supporting life. But no, that's not it. Or exoterically, we could say it is. But esoterically, it's the intersection of heaven and earth, of spirit and matter. And that's consciousness. That's the love aspect. That's what the Christos between the Father and the Mother, between spirit and matter, represents. That we are both of these things. We are not human beings with souls. We're not physically solid beings with a spirit, animated and illumined by energy, although that's a way of looking at it. This meat sack that is somehow illumined and animated by spirit. But if we put the pony in front of the cart, if we get the order right, we're spirit that's incarnated into an animal body. And so we're both. Just as Christ is often referred to in the Christian religion as the Son of God and the Son of Man. You'll find him referred to as the Son of Man as often in the King James Version of the Bible as he's referred to as the Son of God. And then, of course, Christ says repeatedly, you're all children of God. These things I do, you can do, and more. Some reason a lot of Christians skip over that part. They they don't want the responsibility. They want someone else to save them. The idea that there's a Christos or a Christ in you is a little challenging for people who consider Christ to be somewhere else, waiting for you in some other place or destination. You are that spirit. You don't have to search for it. That's who and what you are. It's awareness. It's not what you're aware of. It's the fact that you're aware. And even if there was nothing to be aware of, you remain as awareness. You know those experiences where you draw a blank. Maybe you're trying to remember somebody's name. And you say what was his name? That guy that we met back in the day. What was that guy's name? And it's so close. It's that tip of the tongue phenomena, and you just draw a blank. You're not thinking of anything. Nothing is coming. Well, you don't go unconscious. You don't fall asleep or pass out, do you? You remain aware and alert, even though the mind is blank. Therefore, what more evidence do you need that you are not the thinker? You are not your thoughts. You don't have to believe that garbage that bubbles up from the unconscious, that negative BS that's always telling you that you're no good and you can't have it and you don't deserve it, and if you ever got it, you'd screw it up anyway. And you know exactly the voice I'm talking about, because we've all got one. That's the ego nature. Don't be confused. The ego is not the part that thinks you're cool. The ego is the part that thinks you're miserable and inadequate and bad and wrong and stupid and ugly, and nobody will ever love you because you have no idea why anybody wants to spend 5 minutes with you. Those lies, that petitioning, that bullying is your ego nature. And I'm not going to dwell on ego today. It's just, it comes out of fight or flight. It's a survival mechanism. It's triggered by the amygdala. It's constantly, it figures if it degrades you and demeans you and bullies you, it won't have to share its power. It'll always be in charge. Ego is just that part that identifies with you as a separated being, all alone, alienated, and adrift in a world where everything is separated and lonely and abandoned by God. You know the feeling. That's the ego lying to you. You are not those thoughts. You are the awareness that can be expanded with study and meditation and mindfulness to the point you realize I don't have to hold on to that thought. I can drop it. I can let it go the way I just let go of all this muscular tension and got to such a warm, cuddly, nice, wonderful place of deep relaxation. So we have to live in the world. We have to continually chop wood, carry water, as the ancients would say. Now, modern humans obviously don't take that literally. Most of us probably haven't chopped wood in our lives. You buy it in the store in a bundle if you want a wood fire. And the idea of carrying water, probably have to go back 4 or 5 generations to find somebody that had to actually carry water from the well. I'm remembering when I was a little boy, 4 or 5, 6 years old, my father's, no, my mother's brother, my uncle, my mother's brother, had a cabin on a little lake in a remote wooded area of Michigan. Beautiful place. It was so cool. And he had a pump. This I'll always remember this red pump, you know, the old big handle, and but it came out of the sink, which I always thought was so clever. There was no well and bucket outside or no pump outside. He dug the well and then built the house around it so that the pump came up in the sink. But he still had to pump it 4 or 5 times to get the water to come out, and boy, did it taste good. That was the best tasting water. So we didn't even have to carry it then. And so what it means is just the stuff of the world. Maybe you're not growing your food, but you still find it a chore to go to the store and have to buy it. And even if you have a shopper, during the pandemic we were using Instacart, even that's a hassle. And you start griping about the fact you've got to spend an hour on the computer to order the groceries that are delivered by the person to the front door. And even that becomes drudgery, right? My God, you're not out in the field digging dirt and cultivating soil and pulling weeds and adding soil amendments and all that goes with gardening. So it's always drudgery, no matter how difficult or easy it may be. We don't want to do it. And that's all nonsense that the mind offers up to you. If you want to agree with it, I hate to wash dishes. I hate to do my laundry, even though I've got a machine here that does it for me. I hate to have to drive that far. Are you kidding? Try walking that distance. It doesn't matter how many conventions, conveniences, modern technology offers us. We'll always find it to be drudgery. But if you just sat in a chair, you'd be bored. So there again, we're in the middle. We want something to do, but much of what we end up doing, we wish we didn't have to do. It's just the challenge. Chop wood, carry water means the challenge of living in the world, a world that is constantly changing, that is serving up to us a never-ending flow of problems. They never end. No one ever finished their to-do list, did they? You think you're the only one that never gets to enjoy the feeling of everything on your to-do list being crossed off? That's never happened. There is no there. The principle of impermanence, the law of impermanence, says it's a fool's errand to think there is a there, that you'll ever get there. The only peace is letting it all go, putting it all down. And then when you have to do a chore that you really don't want to do, you do it mindfully. You make a game out of it. I think the first time this occurred to me was the summer between my graduation from high school and my freshman year at university. And I gave up my grocery store job that paid $1.85 an hour for a factory job in an iron foundry for $2.14 an hour. One of the stupidest things I ever did. And I had to pay union dues to the United Auto Workers on top of that. But I was making $2.14 an hour instead of $1.85. The first thing they did was hand me a sledgehammer. I said, what am I supposed to do with this? And they walked me over to this, well, it's not an assembly line, it was an oscillating conveyor belt. It was like a metal chute that went down slightly downhill, and it shook like this. And these big iron objects that we were making in the foundry, like anywhere from brake shoes to much bigger things, like a rear end housing. These were made out of iron, lead back in the day. They weren't aluminum or the refined metals that cars are made out of now. And when you pour molten iron into a sand casting, there's this overpour area as air gets trapped when you pour the lead in, the molten lead. And so there's these areas where excess lead is allowed to go, and the air, it pushes the air in there. Well, those need to be knocked off. And that was my job. My first day, I had to swing that 16-pound sledgehammer all day long, knocking off this overpour slag on these big 20-pound rear end housings that were bouncing down this. It was hard enough without it without it constantly moving. It was just unbelievably challenging. Boy, I got real strong that summer, but what a miserable existence in a foundry where it was so loud. There was so much Boilermaker effect that I had to start riding my motorcycle to work instead of the car because I couldn't hear the car start. And for most of that summer, my hands were so tired, I couldn't play my guitar because they were just physically so exhausted. I'm not petitioning you for sympathy here. It was a grand experience. It got me through college. I just remembered this is my destiny if I don't get an education. So it was a very motivating thing. And yet it was just miserable. It was just hell. A ladle broke. When I say ladle, I'm talking about probably 8 feet wide and 10 feet high. Big, giant bucket full of molten lead. And it poured all over a guy. He just burned up one night on the night shift.
And we didn't think any, I mean, it was sad, it was unfortunate, but there was no OSHA. There was no occupational safety laws. You just died, and that was the end of it. Nobody sued the corporation or anything for the death. It was like slavery. Only they paid you $2.14 an hour. So the point of me telling you all of this is that I learned to make a game out of it. I learned to pretend that I was having fun. I had to pretend that this was fun. I did something slaves did, which is sing, or the railroad workers, that John Henry song where the excuse me, the beat of the song is accented by the sledgehammer hitting the spikes into the railroad. John Henry was a steel driving man. Right. All you could do is make a game out of it and pretend. You can do that when you do the dishes or sweep the floor or do your laundry or go to the grocery store, or the drudgery of living in this world that comparatively may not be nearly that bad, but you find it to be drudgery. So why? It's because you're listening to the voice in your head that is bullying you, the ego voice, and you believe that's you, and it's not. And so we have to continually remind ourselves, as we have been from day one in this class, all suffering exists in the mind. It's not in the world being done to you. It's in your mind and the way you look at it. And are you being mindfully attentive in such a way that everything can be fun? Everything can be a game if you're mindful especially if you're not in a hurry. And you just do it mindfully with awareness. And be interested in what you're doing and being curious about what you're doing. And, sing a happy tune, whistle a happy song. This may sound very naive, but it works. Life really is what you make it. Row your boat gently down the stream. You're not a salmon. We don't have to struggle. We're not, who was it? Sisyphus pushing the boulder up the mountain? Let the boulder roll back down the mountain. It already rolled down the mountain once. Why would you push it back to the top? We make our lives into hell. Every bit of suffering is a result of our lack of awareness, our lack of consciousness, our lack of understanding, our lack of self-compassion. Have you ever considered that there is such a thing as self-compassion? Just as there is self-love? You can minimize the suffering. How do women give birth? What a painful, by all accounts, I wouldn't know, but by all accounts, an exceedingly painful thing. And yet, the midwives will all tell you, the nurses and the doctors, relax. A good dentist will tell you the same thing, man. If you keep gripping the arms of that chair, girding your loins, arching your back, you're only going to generate more pain because the brain's trying to signal you with the brain. It's trying to send you a message. If you breathe and relax, let go, and say, I'm getting the message, I feel the pain, you die to the pain. A Zen master would say, sit with it. It diminishes. Now, it's still an uncomfortable procedure to have your teeth drilled upon without Novocaine, but the more aware you are of it, the less uncomfortable it becomes. And so women are taught to breathe and relax. How do you push and relax at the same time? Ask a woman who's had a baby. I can't speak to that. But that's the challenge, the breathing, the relaxing, reminding yourself that this is a natural thing. It's painful. And life, I mean, even the most enlightened being, the master, the guru, they suffer too. But they learn to suffer in a different way, by accepting it, by embracing it, by moving directly into the middle of it and letting go and breathing. It's much more easier to tolerate. That's not right. It's much more easy to tolerate. It's easier to tolerate. So life on earth is suffering. You will continue to chop wood, carry water. I'm going to go to the questions in just a minute here. Before enlightenment, after enlightenment, you still have to chop wood, carry water. They're still living in the world, even if you've learned not to be of the world, even if you're beginning to learn what it means to store your riches in heaven, to learn to create that mental and emotional clarity, to see reality as it truly is, rather than the horror that we make of our lives. Struggling, micromanaging, fighting, always solving problems that would be solved on their own if you didn't micromanage. We worry and we worry and we worry and we struggle and we wonder and we lay awake at night, and then the problem somehow resolves itself and you take credit. Well, what did you really do to solve the problem? Well, I really worried a lot. Oh, good. I'm sure that helped. No, that problem would have resolved itself anyway, even if you hadn't worried. So don't take credit for solving the problem because you were really upset by it. And then you learn to just you got a bill today. Oh my God, how am I going to pay this bill? Where am I going to get the money to pay this bill? Look what happened. Look, the price of gas, Michael, the price of food. What am I going to do? Hey, I don't know what you're going to do other than breathe and relax and trust the way you trust your body to breathe itself, the way you trust your heart to pump the blood through your body, the way you trust the immune system to repress and hold in balance every microorganism, every bacteria, every virus, every disease. I heard a teacher talking about face mites the other day. He said, if you zoom into your face, you'll see these little creatures crawling around on your face. Well, you've zoomed in too close. You don't want to zoom in. You fixate on the self, you're going to see horrible things. Don't zoom in that far. Stand back. See the bigger picture. Work harmoniously with others to be in the world but not of it. You got to chop wood and carry water, even if you're not, whether you're enlightened or not. So do it mindfully, with awareness, with loving kindness, metta, loving kindness, and compassion in your heart. And then instead of getting these rushes of fear and anxiety throughout the day, you find yourself increasingly getting, God, it's just so amazing, these little rushes of pleasure. And you'll wonder, well, wow, where did that come from? Just like maybe now you're wondering, well, where does this fear come from? Why am I so nervous? Why am I anxious? Why is my mind racing? Why can't I just get comfortable and settled in? Where's all this coming from? Well, imagine that being replaced in time by similar and yet opposite feelings of warmth, of peace, of love, of joy. and you go, why am I feeling this joy? What did I do? What did I forget? What wonderful thing is about to happen that I've forgotten about? Instead of waiting for the other shoe to drop, what horrible thing is about to happen that I've forgotten about? We're familiar with that. I promise you, with study, with meditation, with mindfulness, those those little fits of non-specific anxiety will be replaced by non-specific joy and happiness for no reason. It's very cool.
Perfect.
Thank you, Melinda. Who have you got for us?
Well, Chris wonders, he wants to express, he says, as always, I would appreciate, oh, sorry. Michael, I saw your announcement that you were retiring from radio. Perhaps others on this call know why, but could you illuminate for those who don't know as to the why of that decision? Regardless, you've had a great, great career, and I am happy we share that sentiment, by the way, Chris.
Well, thank you. The the comments, the feedback, the responses that I've gotten in the last couple of weeks to this has been really gratifying. I've had a couple of people implore me not to do it, which was really impressive and really surprising to me. I'm 74 years old. I know I don't look it. I look like I'm 25, but in fact, I'm timeless. But my body is aging. I feel vital. I have health issues, but you wouldn't know it. When I wake up in the morning, I feel great. And my life has worked out really nicely. I have a beautiful wife who loves me, and I love her. We have a wonderful life together. Everyone in our family is healthy and happy on both sides. Life is good. But that radio show is a lot of work. It's way more work than when I used to do it live. And I had an office up on Barham Boulevard, and I would just shoot down Cahuenga Boulevard about 2 miles to the KPFK studios, jump in there, do my hour, and leave. Well, now it's 10 hours a week at least to find a guest, arrange the interview with the guest, often having to work through some associate of theirs, arrange the recording, do the recording, the prep before the recording. Then after I get the recording, then I've got to edit the recording. And because I'm able to edit it, I get really obsessive about every little tongue click and glavel pop and loud inhalation. And so it takes hours. If it can be better, I need it to be better. So I get obsessive about it. And it's rewarding and fun and edifying, but I wanted more time to spend with my wife, to work on this class, and to write a second book. Those are the three reasons. More time with Doreen, more time to work on this class, and write a second book. So that's why I did it. Since I made the decisions, I've had absolutely no regrets about it. A little bit of melancholia, it's bittersweet, a little sadness for what was. But you can do that with any stage of your life, you know. Wax nostalgic. A little benefit in doing that. It's certainly not a mindful thing to do, right? Because you're not in the now. So my now is great and getting better and better. But those are the three reasons I decided to hang it up. And I feel good about it looking back on it.
Thank you for that answer, Michael. Here's a question from Jean. A recent light bulb moment for me has been the revelation that living in a state of gratitude rather than one of lack is a life game changer. But even though I understand this intellectually, I still finding myself falling back into the trap of lack, not enough money, not a nice enough home, etc. Can you suggest a mental exercise we can use to help pull us out of the lack trap and back into the mindset of gratitude? Thank you.
Part of being a great question, Gene. Wonderful question. I appreciate your candor. And a central component of mindfulness is acceptance. Acceptance does not mean surrender. This lesson needs to be taught over and over again. So if you think you've heard it, recognize the fear of hearing it again. It needs to be heard again and again. Acceptance is not surrender. It's not giving up or giving in. It's acknowledging reality. You may even want to write that down. Acceptance is simply to acknowledge reality. Said another way, it's not the end of things, it's where we begin. So if you're going to leave it as it is, or seek to modify it, refine it, or improve it somehow, you still must begin by accepting the reality of whatever is going on in my life right now. Now, what do you want to do about it? Well, maybe we could get more clever about income. Maybe we could, if it's a health issue, find something that we could initiate, that we could do that we haven't been doing. Maybe change the way you eat, maybe exercise more, maybe allow yourself to sleep longer and get a full night's sleep, or write your dreams down, or who knows, just consider what can I do if I want to modify or improve. And then again, the turning over that we've talked about, my job in the foundry, survivable only because I made a game out of it. Gardening or doing your laundry or sweeping the floor, which seems like drudgery. When you do it mindfully, you can approach it playfully. But there's a balance, see? There's a turning over to a higher power. There's not my will, but thine. Like, okay, if this is what I'm here to do, and I've got to chop wood, carry water, I've got to do the laundry today. I really don't want to do the laundry today. At least I'm not taking it down to the stream and scrubbing it on the rocks. I remember my grandmother got a brand new washer once, and it had one of those extractors, those ringers. They didn't have spin cycles on those old washing machines. The very first washing machine, just you put soap in it and clothes, and it would agitate back and forth. But then you could drain the water out of it, but then you had to put the clothes through the you had to put it through the wringer and then hang it on the line outside to dry, even in winter. Or if you had a basement or someplace you could hang. I mean, how difficult is it? You have all these wonderful modern conveniences. The issue is the mind. The problem is always the mind, Gene. It's like, get your head straight. And then like the shampoo bottle, lather, rinse, repeat. You got to do that again and again and again and again. Reorient yourself to be more open and receptive and be playful by being mindful and accepting, understanding also the law of impermanence. Nothing lasts. You have to mop the floor. There's a point where you're done mopping the floor. Now you get to stand back and say, oh, look what I did. And the floor's clean. And it's sort of shiny. And this and that. Don't I feel good having accomplished that? I think just trusting the universe, trusting life, that things will work out. Reflect on how often that was the case, that sooner or later, you're still here. So sooner or later, things work out. The problem got solved. The heartache went away. The depression lifted. The pain in your body resolved itself and the body began to heal. Maybe it took weeks or months for the body to heal, but it healed. And so no matter how bad things are, if you're mindful, if you accept reality, acknowledge the reality of it, and then remember impermanence, that nothing lasts. So anything that's you're suffering, any kind of suffering, a little or a lot, is not going to stay the same. Actually, it may in some cases get worse, but never for very long before it cycles around. Because everything has an ebb and a flow. Everything is cyclic. And I love that Beatle tune where they sing, "Got to admit it's getting better all the time." And then there's a couple of points where John Lennon in the background is singing a refrain. He says, "Can't get no worse." Why is it getting better? Because it can't get any worse. Remind ourselves of that. And when things are going really well for you, you know, like the squirrel that put away some nuts for the winter, or if you ever had a dog that buried bones, you know, they're anticipating the difficult times ahead. That's pretty smart instinct. And so if things are going really well, know that there will be problems in the future. But if you're stuck in some horrible situation, some major concern, oh my, what'll I ever do? Just turn it over to the higher power. Just turn it over to the divine will of the universe unfolding as it does. Find something miraculous. I just saw a PBS Nova, you know, that Nova program on PBS. They just did a wonderful program this week on the new James Webb Space Telescope, which is not orbiting the Earth. I thought it was going to orbit the Earth. They put it out there 1,000,000 miles. It's a quarter of the way to the moon. It's not orbiting anything. It's just floating out there a quarter of the way to the moon, 1,000,000 miles away. It takes 20 seconds for a radio signal to get there and back, right? So they send a command to the telescope. Takes 10 seconds to get there, and 10 seconds. It's 1,000,000 miles out there. What an incredible program this was. You could probably get it on demand, I'm sure, and or maybe on YouTube, I don't know. But you know what it did? It lifted my spirits just by contemplating the universe and looking at the photos that this telescope is beginning to return now of deep space and the billions of galaxies and the billions of stars, and contemplating that which cannot be comprehended is very liberating and very freeing. And sometimes it makes you feel very insignificant and very small, but at other times it makes you feel so blessed that you have the ability to wonder, the curiosity to be aware of how much we do not know, as opposed to obsessing on what we think we know and the demands of what we believe we must know, and our ability to solve this problem and heal this heartache, and give it up. Resist nothing. You know, the Taoist idea of go with the flow. Resist nothing. You know, be like the trees and the flowers. And what did Christ say? The birds of the air do not toil and spin and gather into barns. The lilies of the field don't work and suffer. And if the universe provides for them, who are you to believe that the universe or God or nature, the cosmos, the prime mover, the first cause, whatever you want to call it, the source, cares less for you than the birds and the lilies of the field? You're covered, man. you're covered. We just need to remind ourselves that the big stuff is taken care of. And what's that saying? Don't sweat the small stuff. Part two, it's all small stuff.
Perfect, Michael. Bob does have a comment.
Oh, hi.
Hello, Bob.
Hi, how are you? I was gonna, I wanted to tell you, I did hear the last show with Dr. Thurman. That was really interesting,
Good, thank you.
but that's not my comment. I was gonna say, and this is from a few weeks ago, but it still stays with me when you're talking about anger and the losing of one's temper. And you mentioned, uh, you were saying about Jesus when he lost his temper and with the money lenders in the temple, and he went off on them and so on. And then you said, let me try to remember. And then so you got Jesus later on thinking about what he had done and regretting it and saying like, oh my God, I hope they don't put that in the book. And, the book being the Bible, of course. And I got thinking about that all week long. And coincidentally, I had a situation with somebody where they lost their temper on me, and I kind of did it back at them, and it was really, 0 to 60 moment for both of us, and really unpleasant. And when I walked away, and it stayed with me a couple of weeks, still with me even, and the other thing that tied in with that was when you mentioned the same week about when you're having this kind of an argument or something with somebody, you can see basically it's really all about fear. And if you look close enough, you can see the fear in their face. And when I got thinking about it, thinking back on it, I thought, wow, that's exactly right. She was absolutely petrified talking to me. She knew she was wrong, and it was all coming from fear, but then it kind of set me off because I'm only human, and I just react and so I lost my temper, and we both went away feeling really bad, probably. So that's really just the comment was about Jesus regretting and thinking about, I hope they don't put that in the book. I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, another thought that occurred to me that may have crossed his mind was, gee, I could have handled that better. Yeah. Because again, he's Christ. He's Christed. He's like totally enlightened and hip to the trick, but he lost it, meaning he's human. He's the Son of God, but he's also the Son of Man. He's this realized spirit, but he's in a human body, and life sucks. It can be beautiful and glorious, and it can be miserable. It can just be horrible and so painful. This is where Buddhism starts, of course. The first noble truth, the beginning, start here in Buddhism, is ye shall know suffering. You will suffer. At the very least, discontentment, restlessness, if nothing else. But it gets worse. Problems are the universe's way of training us to find better ways to handle them. And the contagious nature of emotions is fascinating. The way what we see in others is a reflection of ourselves. And of course, their experience of that situation is the same. What they see in you, they blame you for without realizing it's really a reflection of them. This is the beauty of marriage or committed relationship with a very, very good friend with whom you're safe enough to be vulnerable, is if you're both hip to that, then you may lose it from time to time and say regrettable things to each other. But when you take ownership of it, it's so much easier to forgive them and, more importantly, forgive yourself for forgetting that you've been immersed in this horror show. I said something to my wife once. Well, more than once, I'm sure, but I'm thinking of one particular occasion when I said something. I didn't see it as mean or cruel or thoughtless or hurtful, but she took it that way. And without reacting at all, she was totally cool about it. She just said, "Why would you talk to me like that? Why would you say that to me?" Or some such thing. And I did a very strange thing. I thought about it before I answered her. Usually that, that doesn't happen. We become reflexive when we're emotionally amped up. Say the first thing that blows through our brains. But for whatever reason, this time I thought about it for maybe 3 seconds. And then I told her what had come to my mind. I said, it's because that's the way I talk to myself. And again, I didn't mean anything by it. She took it as hurtful. Well, that's her reality, so I respect that. That there are no wrong feelings. So if I'd said the same thing to 10 people, I would have got 10 very different reactions. It's more about them than me. But by being confronted with it, hey, ow, that hurt. That was hurtful. Instead of saying, no, it wasn't, and defending myself, which I could have done because I didn't intend to be hurtful or nasty or put her in her place or teach her a lesson or any of that nonsense. Reflecting on it for a moment, I thought, well, that's the way I talk to myself. And then I realized, well, number one, just because you talk to yourself that way doesn't mean you have to talk to other people in a way that they might find hurtful or degrading or demeaning. And secondly, why do you talk to yourself that way? Why are you beating yourself up? And it's because I'm not conscious in the moment, because I wasn't mindful. I was sinking back into zombie consciousness, living life robotically and reflexively, unmindfully, without awareness, and identifying with that voice of the persona of the separated egoic self and beating myself up. It's so true that we say the nastiest things, though hopefully rarely. We do tend to say the nastiest things to the people we love the most, and that begins with yourself. We're far more critical of ourselves than we are of others. So I think it helps, Bob, to take a situation like that, especially when it lingers for days or weeks and haunts you, and you have that feeling of, I could have handled that better, or I hope, I hope nobody puts that in the book about me, and use that to gain some insight, to devote a meditation or two or three to reflecting on what was my contribution and why did I say that out loud, and is that because I talk to myself that way, and why do I talk to myself that way, and what would be a better way, a kinder, more loving. I mentioned self-compassion before. What is self-compassion? It's acknowledging our suffering. Yes, I suffer. And what do I suffer from? Self-imposed hell, because I haven't yet learned how to use the mind properly, to manage the mind, to identify as awareness instead of the thinker, much less the doer. Does that make sense?
Yeah. That that's exactly how I came away from it. Was I was thinking, I mean, this all happened before the Jesus comment, and but then after I heard that, I got thinking, for an entire week, I kept thinking like, wow, now that's in the book about me,
Right.
you know.
In the big book that
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's where we conflate Santa Claus with God. Santa Claus has a big book. He knows if you've been naughty or nice. Uh, People don't recognize that Santa Claus is a substitute for our the challenge to understand the Godhead. Thank you, Bob. That's about all the time I have. Melinda, is there anything outstanding we can deal with real quickly?
There are no other questions, and thank you. That was a wonderful wrap up.
Good, great. Thank you, folks. Thanks for being here today. Remember, it takes me a day, but usually by Monday afternoon sometime, I get around to posting this on YouTube, so they're all there. And I hope you have a wonderful week. I'd like you to unmute and say goodbye to your friends and associates here. And
Namaste.
namaste.
Goodbye.
Aloha.
Thank
Namaste.
you. Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Bye, Michael.
Hopefully see you next week.
Aloha,
Peace.
folks.
Thank you,
out.
Michael.
Where's my stop button?